statistics, have a brief introduction to the field of study, and start talking about some of the important terms that we have that are going to be valuable for us moving forward throughout the semester. So statistics involves data. This ranges from collection, analysis, and interpretation, and this is important across a wide variety of different fields of study, including the natural sciences like marine biology. For more information on this, check out the text section 1.1. So, when we think about science, we're interested in understanding the natural world and progressing our understandings. And in order to do this, we follow the scientific method, which includes devising and testing hypotheses. And so statistics help us test these hypotheses and enables us to reject those hypotheses which are inappropriate and to keep those hypotheses that are appropriate. And in addition to this, we can also determine how certain we are about our findings and the decisions that we're making based on our statistics. So some important terminology that we're going to cover in this lecture and in the next lecture are population, samples, variables, and data. So this first lecture is going to focus on these first two terms. So, a statistical population is the group of individuals or objects that we're interested in. So we can look at bluefin tuna, and maybe we're interested in all bluefin tuna, so we would be interested across the different oceans that they're found in. Maybe that we're just interested in a particular group of bluefin tuna, maybe those in the Atlantic, and their age structure, and so we would define our population statistically based on tuna that are only found in the Atlantic Ocean. Maybe we're interested in a group of organisms more locally, oysters perhaps, and so we would define our population as oysters that are found in Galveston Bay. Now, a statistical population is slightly different than a biological population because a biological population has a more strict definition in which these are organisms of the same species, they're found in the same geographic location, and they're also able to reproduce with one another once they have reached maturity. And so we can think of a variety of different examples for biological populations. Regardless of whether we are using statistical populations or biological populations for a particular definition, defining the population is really important. So for biology, we're going to use genetics as well as behavioral data in which to define the population that we're interested in. For management and conservation, oftentimes sociocultural boundaries are also important. We can think about Texas Parks and Wildlife Department managing the flora and fauna of Texas, and we can think about NOAA managing organisms within United States territory. Now, to illustrate the point that we can have variability in our populations and how we define them, we can look at this relatively simple food web diagram from the Arctic. And we can then count the different organisms, and we can define how many different populations we have in this respective ecosystem. Now, if we count all of the different species, we might find somewhere in the neighborhood of about 60 different species, and each of these different species in this diagram represent different populations within this food web. But we might group some of these organisms together for statistical purposes, maybe the seabirds, phytoplankton, zooplankton, or the benthic organisms. And if we do so, the number of populations that we have is going to differ. And so if we are only interested in marine mammals, maybe we also need to take into account different demographic groups because maybe juveniles and adults exhibit different behaviors or they eat different foods, or maybe males and females exhibit different habitat use patterns. And so in statistics, it's really important that we define what our population is and that we make it clear to the reader or the person that's evaluating the results that we're presenting. Now, populations are challenging to study in part because many of them can be relatively wide-ranging and also because they can have a lot of different individuals. And so we can rarely study an entire population because doing so would involve studying every single individual, which is very unlikely, And if we were able to do this in certain cases, studying every individual could cause a large impact on that particular population. And so in science, we typically study a subset of the population in which to gather information and then make certain inferences. So we can take Texas Parks and Wildlife Department Coastal Fisheries Division as a great example in which they're studying subsets of populations. So here's a map of San Antonio Bay along the central Texas coast. And we can see the grid system that TPWD uses in which to conduct sampling every month. And so every month, TPWD staff go out and pull 20 different bag seines in different grid squares in which to collect representative data from different populations of organisms, including fishes and invertebrates. And so this might be a map of where the TPWD staff is sampling in August, and then this may be a representative map of where they're sampling in September. And so what we can see is that there's some differences in the locations of their scientific monitoring. So this subset of a population of interest is called a sample. And so we can look here at this map, we can see the range of spinner dolphins throughout the world in tropical, subtropical, and some temperate regions. And then this red section on the map in South Africa is where sampling took place for the particular study of interest. And so obviously studying the entire range of spinner dolphins would be very difficult for any one person or all people interested in studying these organisms. And so the researchers took a representative sample of the population to get an understanding of spinner dolphins in that particular region of the world. Now, samples need to be representative of the population because we're using samples to understand the population. And this can present some issues when it comes to science. And so if we go back to our map of TPWD bag seine sampling, what we can see here is that we've got sampling locations across the extent of the bay. There might be a couple regions that we're missing, but for the most part, we're sampling in different habitats in different parts of the bay. Now, if the random sample location generator ended up producing a map like this, we can notice that most of the sampling is taking place in the northwest of this particular ecosystem. And so we're missing a lot of information potentially on the different populations that we're studying in the southwestern portion of the bay as well as the northeastern portion of the bay. So this can cause some problems when we're analyzing our data and we are making inferences. And that second sampling map, in which most of the sampling is taking place in one region, would be considered bias sampling, in which the probabilities of selecting different samples isn't equal. And this is something that we want to avoid. What we're aiming for in science and in statistics is random sampling. And this is going to be an assumption of the statistical tests that we're going to talk about throughout the semester, such that each of the possible samples, meaning each of the possible subsets of the population, is equally likely to be selected based on our monitoring or data collection. And this is important because we're using our sample to infer characteristics of the population. We're not able to sample all individuals of the population, so the sample needs to provide us information across all the different organisms within a small subset. And if we have any kind of bias sampling, then our inferences are going to be inaccurate. For more information on this, I encourage you to check out sections 1.3 and 1.4 of the textbook, and also to work through the practice exercise 1.1 and check the answers in the back of the book. So to further illustrate this, the importance of random sampling and unbiased sampling, let's look at bull sharks in different regions of their distribution in North America. So we can look at this particular study in Texas, and in the map in the top center, we can look at all the different sampling locations that occurred in this particular study. And what we see is that the bull sharks were sampled across their range in Texas, and we can use this information to understand the relative densities and how they've changed over time across the coast. We can also look at a similar study in North Carolina and see that we also can make some inferences about changes in the densities of these bull sharks across time. But what we notice in the map in North Carolina is that maybe we're missing a few important locations. This might not be important or critical, but it's important that we try to do our best to have an unbiased sampling and that we randomly sample throughout the range of the population that we're interested in. So, understanding these two terms is going to be critical moving forward throughout the semester. Populations are all of the individuals that we're interested in, and sample is the subset of individuals that we're interested in, and our population is what we're defining based on our scientific question or our research, and the sample is going to be defined based on the data that we're collecting. For more information on these terms, I'd encourage you to check out section 1.2 of the text. Next lecture, we'll be discussing two new terms that add on to what we've discussed in this lecture, and these are variables and data.